My name is Shelly Fanfan. I am your emotional intelligence expert, and I need to ask you, if a heterosexual man enjoys or finds gay porn entertaining, does that make him not heterosexual? We're going to talk about it today. Again, my name is Shelly Fanfan, your emotional intelligence expert. I am the CEO and owner of Ask Shelly Consulting, where I bring corporations to their next level through the provision of psychoeducation. I am also a licensed psychotherapist right here in Orlando. I have the privilege of working with individuals, with married couples, and with families and unmarried couples as well, teaching them, helping them, partnering with them, providing evidence-based therapeutic interventions to bring them to their next level. And so all of the time, as soon as I tell people what it is I do, they have questions. So for over a year now, I come here live every Tuesday at 12 to share a question that has been asked of me in hopes that all of us as a community can provide feedback for the wellness toolbox of the person that asked. This is not therapy. It's just an opportunity to provide feedback. Hopefully it's something that a person can use for their own relationship, someone else's relationship, their life, their parenting, their wellness toolbox as a whole. If the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. But if it fits, come on. It's time to break through to our next level. When we know better, we have to do better, yes? And so it is important that we understand the power of each one teaching one. So please, share. You never know who's going to see or hear this live. It can be something that leads them to their breakthrough. So I am not going to waste any more time, but I do have to encourage you to engage. I say this every week, and I'm going to say it again. When writers write back in, they talk about how priceless the feedback that you guys give in the comment section. They comment on just how valuable it is. And so understand that the person that writes in, whether they're listening live or not, will go back to those comments and take it into consideration. So if you have something to say it. It's a free world somewhat. But please share your feedback, share your expertise. This is a wife. She wrote in. She recently found out that her husband watches gay porn. He is maintaining that he's a heterosexual. He's offended by the fact that she would even question his sexuality. And we're going to get into the question today. So please let me know where you're chiming in from. Sade. Hey, Sade, thank you. She says, who? It's the topic for me. Listen, Sade, I need you to share your expertise, Madam Socialite. I want you to tell me what you think here on Instagram. Hello, Rock Taylor. Hi, Jano 0021. Gina, hello, Mud Boxer Entertainment. Hello, Marjorie. Thank you so much. Keegan 1924. Thank you so much for joining here on Instagram. All right. So a man who identifies as heterosexual, does it make him gay if he watches gay porn? Answer the question. Does it make him gay if he watches gay porn? Hello, Jimmy. We're talking about straight men. A heterosexual man that watches gay porn. Does it make him gay? Okay, let's talk about it. I'm going to highlight the question. Let me know what you think. Right? We said that this is a collaborative effort. I want you guys to provide the feedback, okay? So, dear Ask Shelly, and she says in all these O's, I am ready to leave my husband. While very long, I will give you a short version. My husband pays our bills for the most part and knows what's what. The other day, we got a shut-off notification that I knew could not be right. I called him several times to no avail. When he finally called back, he directed me to go into his laptop. Guys, why do you guys do that? He directed me to go into his laptop, access the receipts folder for our electric company, and forward it to him via email. In the process of doing just that, I could not help but notice his browser history. I clicked on a few links and was absolutely disgusted. Porn between two men and sometimes more than two. I do not have anything against homosexual men or homosexuals as a whole. However, I did not marry a homosexual man, or so I thought. I was sick to my stomach. I felt I had married a stranger. I finally confronted him a few days after that when he was trying to be intimate with me, and I was shocked by his response. Ready, guys? This is his response. He says he finds it entertaining, but not sexually stimulating. He added that he has no desire to be with men and was offended that I could ever think such a thing. I have gone on my day-to-day routine not discussing the issue anymore because I saw how upset he was, but it's killing me inside. What should be my next move? All right, you guys got to figure it out. What's his next move? What is her next move? What should her next move be? I'm going to repeat the question for those of us who are logging in afterwards, but I want to hear from Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. What do you think? What do you think? All right. So Marjorie says, LOL, busted. Oh, yes. That is beyond busted. She says, LOL, busted. Felton Stevens says, as a heterosexual male, watching gay porn is gay. And he puts it in quotes and says, I mean, what's the benefit of watching two men be intimate with each other? Marjorie says she suspected something, otherwise she would not have checked the browsers, okay? And Yaritza says, lies. Marjorie goes on to say, however, as a heterosexual woman, I watch lesbian porn, but I'm not a lesbian. Talk about confessing here, okay? And Felton says, what's entertaining about watching two men have sex with each other? Okay, and he corrects himself. Thank you so much, Felton, for your feedback. Wow. We have to help this woman. She wants to know how to go about it. She's not bringing it up anymore because she saw how upset her husband got. He was offended, right? And now she has this load that she's carrying, and she doesn't feel the liberty to discuss it, which is an issue. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. I'm going to repeat the question one more time, and we're going to jump into it. Dear Ash Shelley, so I am ready to leave my husband. While very long, I will give you a short version. My husband pays our bills for the most part and knows what's what. The other day, we got a shut-off notification that I knew could not be right. I called him several times to no avail. When he finally called back, he directed me to go into his laptop, access the receipts folder for our electric company, and forward it to him via email. In the process of doing just that, I could not help but notice his browser history. I clicked on a few of the links and was absolutely disgusted. Porn between two men, and sometimes more than two. I do not have anything against homosexual men or homosexuals as a whole. However, I did not marry a homosexual man, or so I thought. I was sick to my stomach. I felt I had married a stranger. I finally confronted him a few days after that when he was trying to be intimate with me, and I was shocked by his response. He says he finds it entertaining, but not sexually stimulating. He added that he has no desire to be with men and was offended that I could ever think such a thing. I have gone on my day-to-day routine not discussing this issue anymore because I saw how upset he was. But it is killing me inside. What should be my next move? What should be my next move? Yaritza says, this is a heavy topic for a marriage. Spiritual bondage is real. Come on, Yadi, that was good. She said, this is a heavy topic for a marriage. Spiritual bondage is real, very real. And we may be seeing some of that. Here on Instagram, Keegan1924 says, as a man who likes women, I can't see how two men having sex is entertaining. That's a different situation happening with him. Two women having sex is understandable. Is that a double standard there, Facebook and Instagram? Is that a double standard? All right, so let me go into this, guys. Please share your comments. Please share your feedback. I want to share some things, right? Because, doing research, reading articles, I love psychology today. If you want me to be able to provide the resource that some of these observations comes from, you can email info@askshelley.com. You can request it right here in the comments. I want to make sure that I provide resources for those who want to hear more about the source and these studies, because it doesn't come from me. This is just a summary of some of the things that I read. Guys, I've been reading articles and articles after article, and I want you to hear this. Of my readings over the past several days on studies, specifically as it relates to this topic, I want to share some things that have come out as observations of studies in the past several years. Number one, heterosexual men that are attracted to gay porn is actually common. Okay? Heterosexual men that have sex with men but do not consider themselves bisexual or homosexual is common. Homophobic men display sexual arousal to images of men having sex with men where their heterosexual counterparts do not show arousal. I'm going to repeat that, and then I'm going to explain that. Homophobic men display sexual arousal to images of men having sex with other men where their heterosexual counterparts do not show arousal. So what does this mean? So there was a study, and it was highlighted on Psychology Today. And in this study, they took their sample, the people that they were running this test on, right? This random selected representative sample of men who, based on a survey, were identified as homophobic, okay? So these are individuals that have extreme hatred or dislike or even fear of homosexuals. And so these were homophobic men. So they do this survey and they do a series of tests. And then as a result of the results, they take these men that scored high enough to be considered homophobic. So they put the homophobics in one room and they put the heterosexual men in another room. Please let me know, right? Please let me know if I'm losing you, okay? So they take, and I don't know what the sample was. Let's say it was 100. And they give 100 men a survey. And based on the results, they determine whether or not these individuals are homophobic. They take the homophobics and put them in a room, and they take the heterosexuals and put them in another room. They then put an apparatus around the base of their penis to measure the swelling or lack thereof of their penis when watching certain images. So they put on heterosexual pornographic images and measure their arousal, right? And other different depictions of aggression during sex, or women in bondage, and all of these different things, and they are collecting data. When the images appear of same-sex sexual interactions on these videos, they measure again the growth or lack thereof of their penises. So the growth of their penis suggests and was operationally defined as arousal. Am I losing you guys? Okay. So if there was swelling in their penis, they operationally defined that swelling as arousal. They found that over 85% of the homophobics were aroused by same-sex images than their heterosexual counterparts. So the heterosexuals who, I have no problem with homosexuals. They didn't have any fear. They didn't have any desire to burn anybody down. They were accepting. I'm not like that. That doesn't float my boat, but for whoever it does, that's, they were heterosexual. They were confident in their sexuality, but they weren't homophobic. They didn't want to kill and burn down people, right? But of the ones that were, ding, 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 were aroused by the images of the same sex sexual interactions than their heterosexual counterparts. The heterosexual counterparts did not show the high percentage of arousal as their homophobic counterparts. Whoa! So what do you think that study concluded? The study concluded that most homophobics feel that way toward others because of their own personal rejection of their own dual attraction. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Gina Nader on Instagram says, it's simply one's choice. What interests one doesn't have to be the same interests of others. And that's a sexual spectrum, right? That's sex on a spectrum where, you know what doesn't float your boat may not float mine. I find it entertaining, but I would never go through with it. So we're going to talk about that a little more. Thank you so much, Gina. I miss you. Okay, so now I just wanted to break down what that study was about. I want to continue with some of the other observations from previous studies. Now, let's see. Heterosexual men make up a significant percentage of this world. They make up between 90 to 95% of the United States of America population. This means that when asked if straight, gay, or bisexual, they consider themselves straight. Of these men that consider themselves straight, a high percentage of them show in these studies that they have dual attractions to same and opposite sex, but they reject any other identity outside of being straight. So many sex therapists describe sexuality to be on a spectrum. This kind of goes back to what Gina was saying. Many sex therapists describe sexuality to be on a spectrum and not so black and white as we see it. Therefore, there may be men that have attractions to the same sex and may never act on that attraction. But are they really straight then is the question, right? Let me say that again. So that means, based on this spectrum and some of the testimonies of the men that were a part of the study, is that even though that they have attractions to the same sex, this is attractions that they would never, ever act on. So then the question is, are they really straight? Many men would never share this duality, even slight, in their sexuality due to the fear of being labeled as gay. So this duality and some of this fluidity that we're talking about in the sexual spectrum is not necessarily announced or admitted to. Most articles that I read address the obvious extreme in how we view same-sex interactions. For example, there's a greater acceptance of it, right, when it's two women. As a matter of fact, many would count it as arousing to see two women together. And these are testimonies from women and also men. But we don't necessarily get the same acceptance and views when it's man to man. Last, our society, while getting better, primarily does not support this spectrum that we're talking about. As a matter of fact, if you're not totally straight, you're gay, and that's it. And so these are some of the things that I read. You can go, I love Psychology Today. If you go to Google, you could do Psychology Today on any topic, and there is a plethora of information that is backed up with studies that evidence statistical significance. They're reliable, they're valid, to kind of get the information, the new information that you need to stay in the loop of things. So we find out a lot that you can have these desires and not necessarily act on them. Let me give you an example. There was a time when I was doing an intimacy coaching with a man who loved images, pornographic images of women being hurt, right? So, you know, S&M, they're being burnt and bondage, hogtied, and things of that nature. And that was something that this person found very arousing. But when he finally tried it in real life, he found it to be very aversive. He found the pain of his partner to be very aversive. Like, I really don't want to do this. I feel like I'm hurting her. I feel like I'm raping her. But this is the same thing that he found very arousing in his fantasy world. So sometimes I think that shows some evidence that sometimes we may be attracted to things that we may not necessarily always have the intention of acting on. I'm not trying to defend this person. I am just speaking what is the truth of many. All right, so let me see here. Some feedback here. All right, so we have Marjorie. Let's see, she says, Felton Stevens, I'm not a guy, so I can't tell you if you are right or wrong. What did he say? What did he say? Let me go back to really, guess I'm a bit old school as it relates to members on men. And you know what? It's so hard, right? Because we're talking about sexuality. You know, there are people that, again, have attractions that they would never act on. And because they would never act on it, they don't necessarily consider themselves anything outside of straight, whatever that is. I want to talk about some things. We're going to go a little bit deeper into this because this woman is wanting some feedback on what the next step should be. Okay? So first, let's define homosexuality. And I went on to Google and I chose the first two, I think, that popped up. And it says the quality or characteristic of being sexually attracted solely to people of one's own sex. Well, if he is initiating sex with his wife, then doesn't that count him out of being homosexual? Now, I know that there are others, but remember, she specifically believes that he's homosexual. So this definition, and based on what we know in the question, would mean that he isn't. I'm not sure if that helps her any, right? Because there's other categories, right? Like bisexuality as well. So here we are. This woman has learned that her husband is entertained by gay porn. He is angry that she would even question his sexuality. And so she doesn't talk about it. And it's been some days or weeks, I don't know, she doesn't necessarily specify, that she has just kind of been going on her day-to-day without talking about it. So we've talked about some things. We've talked about some studies that show that there are men who have this dual attraction, but not necessarily consider themselves heterosexual or bisexual, right? That there are these attractions and desires that not everybody usually act on. They are alive and well and stimulating in your head, but it may not be something that you could actually do. So we have all of these factors to consider when we're talking about, is this man homosexual? We just read the definition of homosexuality. He doesn't necessarily meet that. So I guess the question would be, maybe he's bisexual, but here we are. This is a husband and a wife. And the wife is distraught because she has just found this new information about her husband. The first thing that I think that we need to consider is their level of intimacy. I think that's important. Why should we, why should we even talk about intimacy here? The reason why it's important is because when I have an intimate relationship with someone, there is very little, like I have an intimate friendship and sisterhood with Marjorie. There is very little that someone will be able to tell me about her that I don't know. Why? We have this intimate sisterhood. We have great communication. We talk, we connect. We're intentional about that connection. And so the fact that she had no idea that her husband finds these things entertaining is very concerning. What is going on with the intimacy in that marriage? What is going on with the communication? Why was there this omission? It doesn't look like he hid it too much. He freely told her, go into my laptop, but he may not have been expecting her to go through his browser history either. But definitely when we're talking about issues in marriage, we have to make sure that we do it in levels, right? It's so much more than, oh my God, you must be gay. There's also like, wait a minute, there's other issues here. Like how intimate are you? How intentional are you about quality time? Remember those conversations of care that we talked about where you're really getting deep with your partner, really maintaining that connection where he's finishing your sentence. Those things are important to keep a marriage alive. That's first. Second, the use of porn in marriages. And oh my gosh, I get this question all the time. And most of you know where I stand as a kingdom believer. I rarely ever give sexual advice or perspective or counseling and coaching to individuals who are not married. But for those who are, I always say, what is the culture in your bedroom, right? As a therapist, we have to be careful that we are not putting on our own values to our clients, but that we are meeting them where they are, right? And not being biased and objective in the way that we partner with them to bring them to their next level. But when it comes to a point where I am asked what my professional feedback is or what my views are, I always say, you got to be very careful when you bring in images of other people to arouse you, even when your partner is okay with it. One of the things that I would recommend is, if you like to watch and you want to bring that into your foreplay, you want to bring that into how you're grooming yourself for sexual intimacy, record yourselves, create a library yourselves, your husband, your wife, you won't go to hell for it, right? And so that is what I recommend. But for those who do that, and that's something that is a part of their sexual culture, I always say, understand that it is a risk. There are so many things. There are so many things to consider. How strong you are, how strong your spouse is, the self-discipline of your spouse, the spirituality, how deep, how connected is that person with their higher power, and generational curses in operation, and how demons and other dark powers and principalities get in. I could go on and on and on. There's so much to consider. And so when individuals are saying this is kind of a part of our sexual culture, I just educate on those red flags. I educate on those risks, and the choice is theirs. But again, using porn for sexual arousal is always a red flag. There's so many other things to consider. It's so much more than we enjoy doing this and we have fun with it. It's a lot deeper than many think. The next thing that I want to bring to conversation, into this exchange, that his offense causes her to shut down. His offense causes her to not talk about the situation. I have an issue with that. I think that's also a red flag. We have to make sure that we are not judging the right that we have to express a concern to the person that we love, especially a spouse, based on how they react, their reactions. That doesn't mean that you should now withhold how you are feeling and bear this burden alone. Absolutely not. You are in a marriage with this person. You just ran across new information, and that new information may be a non-negotiable for you. It may break a boundary for you. So we got to be careful when we are not taking the opportunity to engage in assertive communication and tell people how we feel in a loving and assertive way, not argumentative, because that's just non-productive. But we have to take the opportunity to share how we feel. How you feel matters too, man. Okay, he got offended. Okay, he's like, oh, I can't believe that you questioning my sexuality. Is he serious? Is he serious? And you have backed down as a result. I empower you, queen, to use the power of your voice. And we have to understand that using the power of our voice should not be contingent or conditional upon, or should not be a condition about the person's reaction, should not be a condition. Let me say that again. Our assertive communication and stepping into our royalty and our authority, right? The right that we have to share how we feel, especially when you're talking about your spouse, should not be contingent upon how they respond or how they react. So speak. You say, what is your next step? Your next step is to prepare for some courageous conversation. Courageous conversation. That's actually one of the corporate trainings that I facilitate, how to courageously converse. And so that is important. His offense causes you to shut down, or your wife's offense or your girlfriend's insecurities causes you to not share something that is on your heart. And this is someone that you love? No, absolutely not. Now, there is a time, there is a tone, there is a way to communicate. Yes, I get that. But to hold it in and bear this burden like you're the one engaging in such acts that's bringing on some pressure and stress onto your marriage? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You have the right to share exactly how you feel. It's how you do it. I encourage you, Queen, to take the time to examine your boundaries. And that includes what? Non-negotiables. Examine your boundaries and translate those boundaries into the big E word. For those of you who've been listening this past year, you know what I'm going to say. What's that E word? Translate those boundaries into expectations. Examine your boundaries, right? Examine your boundaries, and from those boundaries, make sure that you are setting up your expectations. Before you communicate those expectations, make sure that they're realistic. And when you communicate them in a way that's assertive, not argumentative. That you talk about how you feel, but not how he made you feel. I feel disrespected. I feel betrayed. I feel. Make sure that you take ownership for how you feel. You express the expectations that you have for him and that marriage. And then you wait for him to commit to meeting those expectations. And if he doesn't and says, I can't meet that expectation, I won't stop watching gay porn, I won't. If he doesn't commit to those expectations, now we have an issue. But we can't even get there yet because you haven't had that conversation. My hope and desire is that he would meet the expectations that you have. After you examine the realistic nature of them, you have communicated them in an assertive way. He is still your king. You want to honor that. And so you're doing it in a loving way, but assertive because you have every right. Yes. But it's important to make sure that you do not leave that conversation without a commitment from him. I do not know. I deal with people, with couples that have frequently have incomplete conversations. What does that mean? Oh, well, I told him from the beginning that I can't tolerate cheating and I was going to be his only woman and I this and this is what I expect and all this. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So, okay. What did he say? Well, he just sat there like, he didn't know what to say, girl. No. What did he say? We have to make sure that we walk away from conversations where we are very clear about the expectations. That when I ask you, what did you hear me say? That you are not repeating something that I didn't say. And I know it may sound very like kindergartenish, very elementary, but when we are having conversations with people, you want to make sure they heard what you said because their injury, their story, their offense, their defense, their guilt, their shame may cause them to hear a completely different message. So how do you assure they heard what you said? Ask them, what is your response to what I just said? Or what do you hear me saying? Well, I'm hearing you say that you think I'm gay. No, sir. No, sir. What I'm saying is I expect the gay porn to stop immediately. What I said was I expect us to go to sex therapy together or marriage counseling to really address the injury that this has caused. What I am saying is I expect, because again, you could walk away from a conversation with two completely different understandings of what was said. So I always suggest after a courageous conversation to have a recap. And that may sound too corporate for you, but that's why you may be having issues in your relationship or have had issues in your relationship. A recap is healthy, that we are all on the same page. You have committed to these expectations or not. Because if he doesn't meet those expectations, I don't want you, Queen, to say anything at that time. Because when you are in your feelings, you are out of control. And it may be very hurtful if he says, I'm not going to stop. So I want you to pull back and say, I heard what you said. I respect your honesty. I need a little bit of time to process this. Women, because the woman is writing in, I'm not saying this doesn't apply to men, just because the woman wrote in, women, we have to stop reacting while we are in our feelings. Because what happens is you say a whole lot of things that you are not ready to honor. When you are in your feelings, you're going to get to a place where a lot of what you said, you don't have the capacity to meet. So now your yes doesn't mean yes, and your no doesn't mean no. And as soon as your yes loses power, and as soon as your no loses power, you compromise your virtue as a queen. It's better to not say a thing than to say, leave my house, and call him back a week later, or tell him it's over, and you like busting his tires open when he moves on with his, but you broke it off. Like, we gotta stop being so emotional about things and operate in wisdom. So this is why, woman, queen, I'm telling you, if he says he's not going to meet the expectations that you are expressing to him, just say, thank you for your honesty. I need some time to process this. And you got to get counsel. You got to get counsel. That's another thing where we fall short of, because we want people to think we have this amazing marriage, things are going great, and it's very hard for us to be vulnerable before people and say, I need help. I don't know what to do, right? I have no idea what to do. But make sure you are aligning yourself with wise counsel. Sometimes the people who love us the most are the worst people to get counsel from, because they're just as mad as you. They want to bust his tires open just like you. Wise counsel, objective counsel, unbiased counsel, right? Because you're going to need help to determine your next moves, or just reach out. info@AskShelly. You wrote me, so you know the power of feedback, you know the power of counsel, and get the therapy that you need to help you in making the decision for the next step. Woo, boy, I have so much that I want to say, but it's 12:41. I don't want to open a can of worms. So we talked about making sure that she assesses her boundaries. One of the things that we have to stop doing is negotiating our non-negotiables. Don't call it a non-negotiable if you're still with him. Don't call it a non-negotiable if you're still with her. It's not a non-negotiable. Don't call it a non-negotiable. That's it. Be honest with yourself. It's not non-negotiable. Okay? But if it truly is, you have to make sure that you build your boundaries surrounding what those are. And so you have your boundaries. Make sure you write your expectations, have this courageous conversation, do it in a loving fashion. Don't be in your feelings. Try not to be, schedule it, right? We talk about this a lot, don't we? I feel like almost every session we're talking about expectations. You know why? Because every problem that you have in relationships or any interaction with someone is always rooted in an unmet expectation. So if it's rooted in an unmet expectation, then we have to get expectations met to have healthy relationships. Sometimes it's just that simple. Do you have the capacity to honor the expectations and the needs of your partner over your own? And that level of submission and selflessness, many of us don't have. So this is why it's important to get your expectations together, assertively and courageously communicate them, and get his buy-in. Now you can hold him accountable. Now you can hold him accountable when he says, I am going to meet those expectations. So now, if there's a repeat offense, now we can say, but you said that you wouldn't do this. Now you have another fish to fry, because he committed and broke that commitment. And that's a whole nother Ask Shelly segment, okay? And so it's important to make sure, if you don't feel that you have the capacity to manage these things on your own, a mediator is awesome. You know, I know that people, a lot of the times they associate therapy and counseling with being crazy or being an addict, but no. I have clients, guys, that come in for what I call maintenance therapy. It's just to maintain their wellness because they don't want to get to the other side. So there doesn't always have to be a presenting issue, or it could be minor issues where you just need some buy-in, it's called solution-focused therapy, guys. That's what it's called. So if you ever want to call out to an agency, do you guys provide solution-focused therapy? It's brief therapy. It's a couple of sessions. It's empowering. You get the tools that you need. You work out the kink that you're having in your life at that time, and you move on with your life. And so if you do not feel, because I have a little concern that you're holding this and carrying this in just because he got offended, maybe you lack the assertive skills needed to courageously converse with him. So this is where a mediator comes in. You can go into therapy for a brief period of time to process this. This is your husband. You guys decided that you wanted to spend the rest of your lives with one another, and you just found out some news about him that you've never known. This is injury, and counseling, therapy, it helps to heal injury. And so that is important too. The last thing that I want to say is actually a repetition of what we just said and what we just talked about is do not let anyone cause you to feel like you are wrong for your position. Don't let anyone make you feel that, how dare you question my sexuality? Is he serious? Is he serious? But you know what? Don't allow yourself to get into an interaction where you have every right to say what you say, where you have every right to feel how you feel, and all of a sudden in this conversation you become the source of the conflict. Don't allow that to happen. Stop it right in its tracks. Okay, I hear what you're saying. You're bringing up when I told you I kissed someone about 3 years ago before we got married, but this is not what we're talking about. If you'd like to talk about that, you can schedule some time with me when you are free on your schedule, and you can facilitate that courageous conversation. But today, we're talking about you. Don't let people, that's the swing. That term, how many of you have ever been in an argument or an exchange, a courageous conversation? We don't argue, we courageously converse. Okay, we courageously converse, we do not argue. But how many of you have been in that situation? It's like, wait a minute, how did he storm out mad? How did she storm out mad? Like, I initiated the conversation. Has that ever happened? Don't let the flip happen. Gina has her eyes wide open. Don't let the flip happen. You, queen, have every right to feel the way that you feel. And this is why don't let another day go by without having this, what do we call it? Courageous conversation with the man that you love. Thank you, Marjorie. Part of my consultation team, she says that's called, drum roll please, gaslighting. Gaslighting. And that is a form of what? Defense. It's a form of escape and avoiding responsibility. It's a form of escape and avoiding responsibility. Candy says, used to happen all, she puts in all caps, the time. All the time. We cannot allow it to happen. Bring it back on track and say, okay, listen, love, honey, king, call him king. They love it. King. We're not talking about that right now. I'm happy to though. But before we go there, about this gay porn, one of the things that I didn't say, I think that she should ask him what he finds entertaining. Would that be right? Does it matter? Let me know. I don't know if I'm really sold out on that. Does it matter? Because he said that I'm not sexually stimulated by it, but I'm definitely entertained. I think that, I don't know. What do you guys think? I think she should ask him, what is it that you find? Gina on Instagram says yes, with multiple S's. Right, Gina? Like, I think it's important to know what he finds entertaining. Julia Banks here says it matters. Yeah. I think it's fair, guys, right? I think it's fair to ask him what he finds entertaining, because I think that's really huge. We didn't spend much time on that, but I think that's huge right there. Thank you, Julia, for your feedback. All right, let's see. We are okay. Yes. Felton says she should ask that question. Okay, good. Okay, because I was like, okay, well, does it matter? Does it not matter? I was talking to a friend yesterday about that, something about her ex and wanting to know. And I'm like, well, does it really matter? Sometimes we just get so confused and distracted by things that don't matter. But yeah, I think that's huge. Because he made that clear, right? He's like, I'm not sexually stimulated by this. I just find it entertaining. What's entertaining? Gina says, maybe it will open discussion as what he feels he is missing in their bedroom. Gina, that's good. Because we talk about that in intimacy coaching, having those really open conversations about desires and being unapologetic about what those desires are. That is so good. That is so good. You need to tune in every week. That was so good. Now, I don't know what he could possibly be missing in the bedroom that he could, that he's compensating for in indulging in this gay porn, but it's important to know that. I think it's important to know that. All right, let's see. Marjorie says, good question. Perhaps he's angry because of the stigma that society has about it. Maybe he's upset because he was scared about her reaction. He's scared she will reject him. She will think of him different. And that may very well be. And you know what? His fear and his issues with that are his issues. And if she chooses to move on, and I'm not suggesting that she should or should not, right? But if she chooses to, see, what happens is sometimes we can understand where people are coming from. And for me as a psychotherapist, and I will end with this, as a psychotherapist, I get it. So I can be with someone who's emotionally unavailable. This is just an example. Someone who's emotionally unavailable because I know of the abandonment issues, because I know that this person didn't get nurturing from his mother, because I know there's a lot of daddy issues there, a lot of abandonment, because I understand that I can get where the emotional availability comes from. And for many years, I mistaken that understanding as a reason why I should stay. You can understand the circumstances of your loved one. And I'm not talking about married couples because that's a little bit different, right? That's a little bit different because now we're talking about marriage. I don't want people to start filing for divorce because your husband is emotionally unavailable or distant or depressed, or that's a whole different conversation, right? But in general, I want you guys to understand that in general, right? The fact that you understand it doesn't mean you have to accept it. And when I got to that realization in my life, much more recent than you guys would actually ever know, probably except for the people that know me intimately, it set me free. I could understand all that, but I don't need to be the one burdened by what you went through. Especially when the person is not playing an active role in healing from the hurt. That's huge. That's even bigger, right? And so in asking these questions and hearing his feedback, I think it's very important, but it's also important for her to stand true to the morals and standards and values that she has set for herself. Okay? Woo, woo! Hi, Lisa. Thank you for joining, Joanne. Julia, Felton, Candy, thank you for engaging. Ooh, all of these great comments. I'm going to go back and I'm going to make sure that I respond as well. I love my consultation team. I cannot wait for the person. You know, it's hard. Are you able to tell who's on live? Is there a way to do that? I'm so tech challenged because I don't even know if the writer is on. Sometimes I can tell by the email address. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes it's clear that people make up their email addresses because they don't want to be identified. And that is fine because when you submit your questions, it's confidential. So feel free to be the one to write in. If that is you and you have this burning question that you want to ask, you can do so by emailing info@ashshelley.com. You can also submit your questions right on my website, www.ashshelley.com, and you can submit your questions there, and they will be highlighted on a Ask Shelley show. I would never say your name. I would never say I don't reveal any identifying information, so it is safe. And if you have a dying, burning question, even if it's not a burning question, but it's something that you think needs to be addressed and discussed, write in info@ashshelley.com, or you can go to my website, www.ashshelley.com. If you're looking for a speaker, you want to tear the house down, burn the house down, you want a powerhouse speaker, an empowerment speaker, motivational speaker, educational speaker, whatever speaker, you need someone to pray the house down at your women's conference or men's conference, you can book me at www.ashshelley.com. Most importantly though, oh my gosh, can I do this like super, super duper fast? Oh my gosh, hold on. Don't go anywhere. Oh my God, how come I didn't do this before? I don't know if my spelling is right. bit.ly/Victorious Marriages. Okay, yes. Okay. So last Wednesday, some of you did, partake in the book launch. And so I had the uncommon opportunity to be a part of a project. And the book is called Struggling to Keep the Vow. And there is, I think, 6 of us authors on that book. And I had the privilege of writing in the book and contributing to contributing a chapter to the book where I talk about my own personal struggles in marriage, and also providing tips from someone who did step away and separate from marriage, and for someone who is also a professional in the field. And so if that is you and you want to purchase the book, you can purchase it for a new couple. You can purchase it for a couple who's struggling. You can purchase it for yourself. If you are seriously dating, then I definitely suggest that you get the book. It's bit.ly/Victorious Marriages. That will take you right to the site where you can purchase the book, or you can just go to my website, www.ashshelley.com, and you will be able to get the book there. So listen, it's about making sure that we have the tools, right? The tools to dominate in our relationships. A lot of our breakthrough is on the other side of something that we do not know, something that wasn't taught to us. Our breakthrough is on the other side of unlearning some very unhealthy messages and lessons that we learn watching our parents and the people that we love. It's true, right? And so give yourself that gift to learn new tools, refreshing the tools that we know, unlearn those very toxic learned thought patterns, and set yourself free. It is 12:57, guys. Thank you so much for joining in to this week's Ask Shelley Show. We've learned a lot. Make sure that you do your research. If you want to know what resources I read from, please message me. I'll make sure that I share that. Continue to share thoughts. Let's say you wake up tomorrow morning, you thought, you know what? I don't know about that. Now I feel like, come back to the replay and put it in the comments. We want to make sure that we are providing this woman with as much feedback as possible. So, can a heterosexual man engage in gay porn and not be gay? And the answer is, that's up to you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this week's Ask Shelley segment. I will see you next Tuesday, same time. God bless you. Oh, wait. I don't know about next Tuesday, but I'll announce it if I don't go on. So my son and I are going to take this little tour around cities that we've never visited before, like LA and Seattle, and then we're going to go to New York for a little bit. I know what you're saying, like at a time like this, but I really want to make sure that we have time together. We're bonding as mother and son. This is his senior year. It's very uneventful. Breaks my heart that for his senior year, there may not be a grad night, they may not be prom and all these other things. And like the other day, I got a notice about graduation pictures. He's like, oh, whatever, And so I want to make sure that we take time and do the best that we can to live life as if it wasn't promised, because guess what? It's not. And we'll be safe, but I may not be on next week, but I'll make sure I make that announcement, okay? All right, Gina, thank you so much. A. Diaz, thank you for tuning in, friend. Okay, Marjorie Colas, thank you. Keegan 1924, I love you and I miss you. Thank you, Instagram. Thank you all on Facebook. Mwah. Till next time. Blessings.